5-4. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, God, lawful. Welcome. Just there, you're finishing up some final touches on our constitutional draft. We're gonna get started shortly. Okay, let's see if we have any other disruption before proceeding. I think we have just about almost all of these sections set up properly. Just double check. Okay. Sobek, lawful, welcome. Greetings, greetings. Kem, lawful, welcome. So we see people are slowly rolling in. Welcome, we're gonna get started shortly. We have some interesting things to discuss. What do we have? And for the signatories, we have some even more interesting things that possibly only you who have taken trust class are going to be able to comprehend. So I'm going to, of course, have the gems ready. This was what, 41? Yeah. How far did we reach with this? So we have 40 and 41 to add. 40. So what was Article 40? Article 40 was road safety. Almost ready. Gonna get started shortly. That would happen. And the last one. Last one we have customs. Yeah. And then we need to remove this. That way we can keep things coordinated. Crap. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that this one. That's 250. This one is 50. 58. This is 40. 258. 267. All right. And that covers that. I'm gonna save this and update our draft so that we can proceed lawfully. So I hope everyone had a great weekend. Document is getting quite large. It's getting quite large. No, there was another thing to add, but we're not gonna do that right here, no. So let us update our draft and let's get started. So all right. So today we're gonna cover our draft, our current draft. We are getting close, but we are not 100% there yet. Right? We have a few sections to add. One of the more important aspects that I've added recently, I was just cleaning up that section, is customs. You know, we almost, I can say almost everyone has interacted with customs in some way, shape, or form. Nature lover, lawful, welcome. We have interacted with customs in one way, shape, or form, right? Whether you buy from an online store, no, sir. Whether you buy from an online store or you buy from some other importer in some other country, we end up having to deal with customs and border control. And to me, again, you know, we are many times when we face the court system, we are told over and over again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So that means that everybody is deemed to know the law, especially the government, right? And customs, as we know, is an arm of the government. So the law states that personal shipments, items not intended for trade or commerce, is not supposed to be taxed, right? But yet still, when we, the individuals who are going to consume or use the items, we import these small amount of items and we are slapped with exorbitant amounts of taxes. Scrub and wipe, lawful, welcome. You joined the right time. We're just getting started, right? So we are faced with an exorbitant amount of taxes and the fees and the storage and all these different things that, again, this is my view. I am not a lawyer. I am not an attorney. I am not providing legal advice, right? I am simply providing my opinion on some of these things. And I'm going to show the legislation as well. So, when we are importing these items and they reach Jamaica, right? We purchase them, they are shipped, we pay all of the fees, them and the taxes on the source side. Now it reach our destination and it is in our ports. It is undocked off the ship. You know, them use forklift or whatever and take off all of the items, them, all the barrels, all the crates and all these things. And then they hold them for inspection. So the ship is docked, then take them off, then warehouse them, and they are sitting there for minimum a week. Maximum, you know you can't put a maximum on it, right? So they sit there for a while because they sometimes do inspection. I don't know. I don't know if they really do inspection prior to you trying to come pick up the items. The reason I also say this is because what? When you go there to pick up your items from the wharf or from a port, they are again checking the goods with you. They are again checking the items with you. They are again going over what seems to be, you don't even know what to call it, right? So the items come in and they more than likely scan them for anything dangerous. And then when you are to pick up your item, you are now brought through an entirely new process. And then they want you to open up your items to show them what's there. And then they are calculating additional taxes and fees. So now we have something called double taxation. And we also have something called taxation without representation. So I'm going to teach you the first gem today before we get to constitutional draft. The first gem we're going to teach you today. In the Constitution, Jamaica, Order in Council 1962, there is something called the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Damien, lawful, welcome. Drastic, lawful, welcome, thank you. There is something called the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, right? The Charter of Rights are a set of protections for the people. Let me say that again. The Charter of Rights outline protections for the people. We're not going to go into constitutional history just yet. We're going to go into it later, but not just yet. So these protections, right? Then coming like one condom. That is what they're supposed to be, The Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms is supposed to be like a condom. Me have to give it to you raw today. Because it come like say someone now hear what me I say. So me I go give you some real life analogy. See? The Charter of Rights outline the things them that are supposed to be protected in our society. Who are they protecting and protecting from what? Remember them saying there is nothing new under the sun. Everything that we are experiencing today in today's economy, in today's society, our ancestors, our parents, our foreparents, our grandparents, they have already gone through it. Everything we are experiencing, our foreparents have gone through it. So there is nothing new under the sun. The reason it appears that we are in a so-called future or we are living a different time, it is only because of machinery and technology. That's it. The food does not change. The only thing that's changing our food is what? Machinery and technology. The time does not change. The only thing that's changing the time is what? Machinery and technology. So everything that was here before, the mango them still there. The plant them still there. Everything, all of the things that we need have always been here. So that means what? All we are doing is just passing through. Okay? So, the protections that were offered in the charter. Number one, you need to claim them. Just because they're there, that doesn't mean that they're activated. That is our first problem. We don't have any activation of rights. But if you choose to activate your rights, you should, and I have to use the word should, because even with the activation of rights, we will have ignorance of the law. What does that mean? So in the Customs Act, matter of fact, we like to speak lawful over here, don't? So we're going to pull up the Customs Act. Right? And we're going to talk about that today. So there's the Custom Act of 2020. So I'm going to show you what I am talking about. Because when I just talk over here, right? We actually go through and see what the law says. Right? So here we have the Customs Act of 2020. Right? So now, if we scroll down on the table of contents, we have a section here called exemptions. We never go bother read much of it, but I'm going to show you something we have to pay attention to. So we have a section, it is what? Section 48. Wow, interesting. In the Constitution, Section 48 are what? Powers and duties of Parliament. Oh, power to make laws. So, Section 48, make a note of that. Right? Now, the first thing I'm going to show you, which if you have been on my page recently, you should have seen the recent post where I spoke about this very thing. But I'm going to go into a little bit of detail here so that you can actually comprehend what I'm talking about. Right? So, by the way, this one single document is 867 pages. The Customs Act. And while it is that large of a document, that does not excuse the fact that you should at least go through a few sections of it. Because it will affect you. Alright. So here we have Article 2 in the document, which talks about the interpretation. Right? So in this act, them have the words them, and them tell you what the words them mean. Right? Alright. So if we go down to goods, there's a section called goods. Right? Where they're defining EFG. Goods. Right? Just zoom it in so we can see it properly. So here we have the definition of goods. This is what customs says this word means to them. Right? Goods means any wares, supplies, merchandise, articles, products, commodities, substances, documents, and any other thing capable of being transported whether loose, packed, in a package or holder, containerized or in bulk, and includes animals, whether dead or alive, or parts thereof, plants, whether dead or alive, or parts thereof, postal articles, accompanied and unaccompanied baggage of persons entering or leaving Jamaica, and vessels, aircrafts, and vehicles. So all of these things, customs say is goods. All of these things, right? Now, you might be wondering, so what does this have to do with anything? Goods, it means any wares. Do you have any wares in your house? Do you buy wares? It would be very strange if you have wares, because wares are items that are typically stored in a warehouse. Supplies are typically business items, business goods, business products intended for resale. Same thing with wares. They are being stored, intended for resale. Merchandise, again, for stores, for resellers, for retail shops, intended for resale. Articles are the same thing, intended for resale. Things in commerce. Products. Where do we hear the term products? Do we have products in our houses? No. No. Nobody stand up at their gate and try to sell anything. If you want to sell something, what you do? You open up a shop. Products go into commercial buildings, commercial spaces. Commodities, the same thing. It is meant for resale. Substances, Now this is very, very broad. But again, substances. We don't say substances. We say like soap, right? We say chemical, we say bleach, we say whatever. But we don't say substances in our home. Substances are again a term in commerce as it is described here, because you have something called egestum generis. Teach us a little bit of Latin today. Egestum generis means what? Things in the same category. So as they are describing things here, all of these things fit into the category of commercial activity or trade. All of these. And if we look in a legal dictionary, let us pull up one, right? Let us pull up a legal dictionary so that we can, again, speak lawfully, right? Let us go Black's Law, 9th edition. We're going to look up merchandise and we're going to look up goods. Spontaneous travel, lawful, welcome. Goods. Good faith, customer goods. Here we have goods. All right. Here we have goods. So let us bring the definition forefront. Goods, according to the Black's Law Dictionary, 9th edition. Goods are tangible or movable personal property other than money, especially articles of trade or items of merchandise. And here it is giving you a reference, goods and services. The sale of goods is governed by Article 2 of the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the UCC. Right? Spontaneous travel. People are typically taking notes and listening, so they might not be paying attention to the comments. But welcome. Right? Definition 2. Things that have value, whether tangible or not. And here we have a reference. The importance of social goods varies from society to society. Here we have an explanation of the term. Right? But importantly, right? Here it says tangible or movable personal property other than money. Now, you might be wondering, what does personal property mean? It does not necessarily mean that it is something that you, a single individual, is holding. Personal property can be property of a corporation, property of an enterprise, property of a trust, property of many different things, right? So personal doesn't necessarily mean individual man or woman holding something, right? Articles of trade. Again, this is definition 1, All of this is definition 1, right? And then under it, you have definition 2. So in definition 1, it is explaining to you that articles of trade and items of merchandise, example, goods and services, are what they are talking about when they say everything other than money is goods, right? And here it says the sale of goods is governed by the Uniform Commercial Code. So when we talk about goods, the term goods, it doesn't matter what customs define goods as. You cannot change the legal definition of goods. You can add to it, right? You can always add to a definition, but the core definition in legal contexts remains the same. Here it is giving an explanation. Goods means all things including specially manufactured goods which are movable at the time of identification to the contract for sale, other than the money in which the price is to be paid, investment securities, and things in action. Goods also includes the unborn young of animals and growing crops and other identified things attached to realty, as described in the section on goods to be severed from realty. So crops, animals, which rely on the them call it realty, the property or the soil, right, or the earth, your land, things that rely on the land, those are considered goods as well, right? Even though we eat from the land, we are not goods, or we should not be. Merchandise. Let's look at another definition. Same Black's Law 9th edition. MER. Merchandise. Here we go. Let's zoom this one in. In general, a movable object involved in trade or traffic. Need we go further? Let us read the rest of what's going on here. So in general, a movable object involved in trade or traffic. That which is passed from one person to another by purchase and sale. So when we talk about, when we say what? When we intend to consume or use things, that is not commerce. We are not supposed to be paying fees to basically live. If we buy something at a shop, we are not supposed to be paying a tax on it. That is literally charging you a fee to live. If you need a convenience for your household, that is not supposed to be something that is charged a fee for. It is not a merchandise. It is not an article of commerce. Definition 2. In particular, that which is dealt in by merchants, an article of trading or the class of objects in which trade is carried on by physical transfer. Collectively, mercantile goods, wares, or commodities, or any objects of regular trade, animate as well as inanimate. So as we can see here in the context of all that is being described here, it falls under goods or merchandise or articles, commodities, etc. They are all within the same category of items, which are commerce and trade. As an individual, you are not engaged in commerce and trade because commerce and trade requires both buying and selling. You have to be getting a gain or a profit from an enterprise, and an enterprise is something that is perpetual. It is continually doing business. So unless you are continually doing business by buying 10 headphones, it is literally impossible for a regular individual to be trying to do trade or commerce in such a small quantity. But let's not stop there. So here customs have the definition of goods, right? But let us go down to section 48, where they have exemptions. Right? So let us zoom out a little bit and see if we can find section 48. All right, we've gone too far. What do we have here? Awesome. All right, let us scroll. Let me go too fast. Just scroll so that we can find section 48 because the numbering doesn't seem to be matching. All right. Section 48 deals with customs exemptions. Chapter 30. 34. What was that? 7. Almost there. 40. All right, where I get there? Where I get there? What is this one? 49. All right, so here is 48 up here, so. Section. All right, gone. $48. This is gibbery job. Look like they did not do a good job of editing this document. Newsprint. All right, let us go down to the chart. Let's go down to the chart because this is incomprehensible. All right. So here we have description of goods. That's what them call this column, right? And over here, so them have duty rate, right? On the right side. Duty rate. Now, it has paperboard, newsprint in rolls or sheet, free, right? Let me get out of this app. Exit. All right. So we have newsprint free, handmade paper and paperboard 5%, paper weightless. What else we got here? Toilet and facial tissue 5%. These are all dealing with paper. Parchment 0%. So all paper is either 5% or lower from what we can see, right? All right, let us see if we have the rest of it here. Textiles. We're getting there. Give me a second. Just do a search. All right, here we go. We have total. Just zoom it over. Total or partial exemption, right? All right. So we have aids and material for the disabled. 0% for all of these materials. Aircraft, 0%. Baggage and household effects, 0%. You see? We now see this, right? 0%. You see, this column over here says duty rate, you know. Listen, if we not see what me I talk about and we not hear what me I say, drop a 1 in the chat. I want to make sure we not get what we're talking about here. Drop a 1 in the chat if you are getting what we're talking about here. Okay. So we see some activity are going. Right? Alright. So this is page 767. If you open the Customs Act, right? So over the right hand side it have duty rate and it have the unit for the duty. So they are using the value of the item to calculate the duty rate. Okay? So the duty rate for these items are 0%. So you are not supposed to be paying any taxes or duties on these items. This is the Customs Act. I know me I say so. This is how it say. You see it up on the screen? Let me make sure you can see it. Wanna see it? Duty rate 0% in this column. And over here, so this is what they're using for the unit of the duty, right? What they're using to calculate it against. So 0% mean it is what? Exempt completely, right? All right. So let me just zoom it into that section so you can see all the 0% going down. All right. Aircraft items, all of them 0%. Baggage and household effects, 0%. Listen what the description says. the accompanied baggage of a passenger or a member of the crew of an aircraft or ship passed as such by the proper officer and consisting of instruments and tools to be used by him for the purpose of his profession, trade, occupation, employment, blah, blah, blah. 0%. Such portable articles including wine, spirit, tobacco, etc. 0%. Remember, it's a package, it's a passenger or a crew member, So that means that everybody with up on the plane, if you are traveling, 0%. All right. So all of those personal or household effects not specified in subparagraph B or C of this paragraph. So you see, if it is not specified here, you see it's a B. B says such portable articles including wine, spirits, and tobacco in his baggage or on person, which he might reasonably be expected to carry with him for personal use in such quantities as the Commissioner of Customs may from time to time approve. Right? So if it is not in B, it says personal or household effects not specified in subparagraph B or C of this paragraph imported for in this paragraph, which the proper officer is satisfied are not imported for sale or commerce or commercial exchange, and do not exceed the total value of $500 or the equivalent in Jamaican currency. So, however, that the duty-free importation permit by the subparagraph shall not apply to members of the crew of an aircraft or ship and shall apply only to a passenger who has attained the age of 18 years old. So them a claim say the total value of everything we have has to be $500 in value or less. So that is what they are digging you up for at the airport, to see if you go over this value. But this is not correct either. This is not correct either. Because unless, all right, let us go back up here. So, although I never to extend this out too far, but let us talk about this a little bit. Customs is not charged with the duty to regulate personal purchases. Customs does not have the power to tell you that you can only bring in $500 worth of items because you are not intending to resell it. You are not conducting trade nor commerce. So how do you come up with a value of the items? The items themselves, they cannot be put a value on, because to put a value on it, that would mean that you are intending to sell it back. And customs would have to prove that you are indeed intending to sell it back. There is no separate computer systems to include or to put in personal, individual, non-commercial items. Let me say that again. There is no separate government system that will allow the regulation of personal things intended for consumption or for use. And you can ask any of the agents this. Ask them what is the system that they use to process personal shipments or personal items. It is a commercial system. So if you have a commercial system, how are you going to put somebody's intended use items, things that they are going to be using in their yard and their house? How are you going to put it through a commercial system talking about only if it is less than $500 US? Why does the value have any relevance to the fact that I am going to be using these things? It does not. The only reason they get away with this is because you don't know and you don't challenge it. Just like the traffic ticket. You don't know, so you don't challenge it. You just go along with everything where them come up with. So even though they put this here talking about $500, it is foolishness. You cannot put a value on things that you in. It's just like if you got a KFC and you go buy your food. They cannot regulate how much food you eat. They can't tell you to stop. But if you're going to a casino, they can tell you to stop gambling because that is commerce. Did you know gambling is... Anyways, we're not going to get to that. We're not going to get to that. All right? So, this personal or household effects, right? It is at 0%. Let us go down a little bit more. Personal or household effects admitted as such by the Commissioner of Customs, which accompany a passenger and are proved to the satisfaction of the Commissioner of Customs to have been in use by the passenger for a reasonable period and are not imported for sale or commercial exchange. 0%. Wow. Isn't that just what we're talking about? You see, this section up here, so you know, this section limits you to $500. And if you stop reading there, you don't go down to number 3, where it specifically states that everything, as long as you declare that it is not for commercial use, they cannot charge you a duty over here. So, see it say 0%. 0% rate of duty. I know me I say so. I them write it, you know. See there, number 2. I them write it. I know me. All right. Baggage and household effects imported within 2 months before or after the arrival of a passenger, or within such further period as the Commissioner of Customs shall in the circumstances deem reasonable, provided that the articles would have been exempted from import duty had they been imported under paragraph 1 or 2. 0%. Now, let us ask ourselves a question. Why are they using the term personal and household effects? Why? Why didn't they just say your personal items? The passenger's personal items. Why are they using personal and household effects? You see, even though they know that they're not supposed to be taxing the people individually, they are putting these commercial quasi terms here to trap people. These words do not appear in the normal English language. This is legalese. If you don't get a legal dictionary, look it up. Or even if you look it up in the definition section, many times these words are coming back around to customs purpose, which is to regulate trade and commerce. But either way, the rate of duty is supposed to be 0. Zilch. You're not supposed to be paying custom duties for anything that you consume, anything used in your household. Baggage and household effects imported within 2 months before or after the arrival of a passenger, or within such further period as the Commissioner of Customs shall in the circumstances deem reasonable, provided that the articles would have been exempted from import duty had they been imported under paragraph 1 or 2. You see, them start out with baggage and household effects, and with them start down here so. Articles. You see? And on me I say it, you know. They say baggage and household effects, but down here so, them I call it articles. Why? Because they can govern and regulate articles. Articles are things within commerce. So you have to be very careful when you make your declarations and you send it into customs, or you bring it with you and show your exemption. Because if you describe what you have as an article, that means that it is an item within commerce. You are intending to trade or sell it. So any exemption that you have, it is under the fact that you are not intending to sell it. You are going to use it. It is a part of your household. It is a part of the liberty that you are guaranteed under the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Your liberty and your right to life, liberty, and happiness. The pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of your person, the protection of your family. You need sustenance. So that is why you are claiming your exemption, because you cannot be charged to live, especially a tax. Personal effects, not being merchandise of citizens of Jamaica or the person ordinarily domiciled in Jamaica who have died abroad. 0. Subject to the provisions of this paragraph, accompanied baggage of a passenger who is a returning resident. Can't go too deep into all of this, because we're going to talk about this all evening. But you have to read. You have to even skim through. I know this is a very large document, However, if you don't know these things, you're going to be paying out of your nose. You think I'm afraid to charge you? You think they're afraid to exaggerate the prices of things in order to charge you? Talking about you have a $500 allowance, when the very section under that section state that you don't have a limitation, because it is not imported for sale. It specifically states it right there. Are not imported for sale or commercial exchange. 0%. So, all of this taxes and fees that we face from customs, if it is not for your business, they are not supposed to be charging you any rate of taxes. It is exempt. You are exempt from taxation. Once you are going to use it for your own personal use, you are exempt in accordance with the Customs Act. Not no more. I save over 70,000 and 2 boxes in December. See somebody in the comments there? This individual come to class, so he knows what we're talking about. Right? You can draft your own declaration based on this specific section or any section that is deemed useful to you. Right? You can draft a declaration and you can send it to customs. And to many people who might be thinking, customs not respond to nobody. They actually do. You can also bring it with you. You bring your declaration with you and let them know you are claiming an exemption. And they will process it. So anyways, when we have these kind of protections and you don't know that you have the protections, right? Nothing is going to stop customs from continuing their everyday normal business practices, right? Because at the end of the day, their goal is to make a profit for the government, right? That is what they do. They go through and they do their legal process. It doesn't necessarily have to be lawful, but they go through their legal process and they process you as a commercial customer. So anytime you see them type up nothing on the computer, it means that they are entering details in a commercial system. It is called, who knows what the customs system called in the airport? Anybody know? What do you call the system that they enter information into? It is on the customs website, So it is not hidden. It is not something that you have to be working there to know. It is right there on the customs website. Right? So, if you don't know, you will. Ignorance is not bliss when it comes to the law. You have to know some of these things. Right, it's called ASICODA. What is not spelled that way though. So, what is the point of this? The point of all of this is number one, the more you know, the more you are protected. The more you can assert a right. Because if you can assert a right, that means that you can assert the protections that are afforded under the Jamaica Constitution Order in Council 1962. And here is the beauty of it, right? The Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, and we talk about this in many of our live stream sessions, right? Let us pull it up. The Charter of Fundamental Rights in our should be read with our Constitution, right? The Charter of Rights. So let us take a look here. Right? So this is the charter document signed by Sir Patrick Allen, the Governor General, right? And here it starts at chapter 13, right? See? Chapter 13, right? And here it lists fundamental rights and freedoms that are protected, right? So if we scroll down a little bit to chapter 14, from 14 on, it starts to list the protections. You see what it says here, so? Protection of freedom of the person, right? So just like one condom, it is meant to protect you before you have any damage or any violation of those protected rights, right? A protection is meant to protect you before harm occurs. A protection is there to stop overreach. So when the charter says protection of freedom of the person, when a violation occurs, what is happening is what is called a violation or an abrogation or anything that affects your rights that is in violation of this protection, right? And that now gives you the right to go and claim what is called redress, or you can sue somebody in court or sue an agency in court once you have a violation of any of these protections. So it is not a constitutional right like you may have heard. It is a constitutional protection. And just like a condom, it is meant to protect you. But unfortunately, especially as we have seen, some agents of the state continually violate your protections because you don't know how to make a claim in the court. The protection is meant to be there to protect you before the harm occurs. But many of us don't get the chance to exonerate ourselves and to get restitution for the damages we have sustained. We simply fall by the wayside. Fall by the wayside because we don't gain the knowledge necessary. And many of us don't have the funds to go hire an attorney to do constitutional claims for us, right? So here's another interesting thing before we get on to our draft. One more interesting thing. I'm going to pull up our constitution, right? So in chapter 4 of our constitution, three and 4, right? And we talk about this before as well. So this is what is called the savings clause. Is this 4? Hold on. Oh, wrong act. My bad. Come here and say, hold on. That's not 4. I know that 4 is supposed to say. So here we have 4. Okay. This looks more like it. Existing laws. Right? So this is what's called the savings clause. So when the Constitution Order in Council 1962 was enacted, it saved all of the colonial laws, right? And it was, again, I've explained this many times, it was supposed to be temporary. The constitutional framework that we have right now, that was supposed to be temporary. These sections in there were all supposed to be temporary. We as a people were supposed to be working on our own constitution and creating our own institutions of law, our own schooling systems. We were supposed to replace everything colonial. But our forefathers had no idea what was going on. Or if they did not know what to do. To my surprise, Section 4.1 that talks about all laws which are in force in Jamaica immediately before the appointed day shall continue in force on or after that day, and all laws which have been made before that day but have not previously been brought into operation may be brought into force in accordance with the provisions in that behalf, right? So that means that all of the colonial laws that were there before, now they are in force and effect, and if they were not enacted yet, they can now enact them, right? So, to my surprise, this is a common colonial thing. Whenever a country claims that they want independence, they don't disband the current laws. They keep the laws in place. And they just build on top of it. So they continue building on the same colonial foundation, including America. You know, that is very interesting because if we are going to call ourselves a free people, how are we using the same oppressive language and the same oppressive systems that we are getting away from? We are using that as our foundation. How does that make sense? If we want to be a free people and we are saying that, you know, this current system is so bad, it is taking away our liberties and our rights and our freedoms and our ability to grow, why would we keep any of it? You see, again, the unspoken implication or what is implied is that they don't want society to go into chaos, right? They don't want the criminal laws to fall out of disrepute, right? The idea is that colonial laws would be replaced over time, but they are so voluminous. You know, really and truly, they are not necessarily voluminous, you know. They are voluminous in character, right? In the amount of pages that they use to describe some of these documents. Yes, it is voluminous in that sense, but it is not voluminous in the amount of acts that should have been either replaced or combined and made into something sensible for our people, or just get rid of it. Start from scratch. Why do we have legal drafters? All of these things we are now seeing in our parliament, and all of these things we are seeing with all the politics and things going on. Instead of them sitting there coming up with new road traffic act and new this and new that, they would work on these things and get rid of all of the colonial stuff. You see, A lot of these acts should be abolished long time. Again, it is not even say it should have been abolished long time, you know. It is the fact that our ignorance, our collective ignorance has not allowed us to see this far for so long. What do I mean? We see the damage it is doing, but we don't know what to do about it. But they can't do that when they work for the colonial masters. Exactly. Exactly. No. Ah la la. All right, signatories, get ready. We're going to talk about something. All right? We're going to talk about something that we covered in class. Grab one pen and one paper. I think the problem is we don't know how to even ask questions. We're going to fix that, man. Everything is time, you know. Everything is time. We're going to fix that. But for those who are familiar with trust language, those who are familiar with constitutions, those who are familiar with histories, we're going to talk about something now that is at a higher vibrational level. We're going to talk about how the colonial powers took over and what they were using. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to use an example of a state. A United States. And I'm going to show what exactly happened. And again, this is a question that I'm answering. And this is public information. So I am not going to share anything that is not publicly available. All right? So I'm going to bring up a document. And I'm going to show you something. So I'm going to bring this over to you so that we can see some rather interesting details. All right. So we have that. Let's pull up this one as well. Again, you know, people, I'm going to reiterate this. This is public information. You just may not have looked it up before. And it might be a little bit disturbing. All right? So stay tuned. I'm just putting everything in order so that we can go over them. All right? So let's bring this one up. All right. I think we have everything you know. So we're gonna start. We're gonna start and show you where the colonial powers began and how it began. Actually, we need to show one more thing. Give me 1 second. One more thing to bring everything full circle. Right? There was one more. Where was the tribe? Let's see. No, that's not it. One more. Give me 1 second. Where is the tribal part? Oh, here we go. Just about to come on for this, you know. I'm going to show you again why they always say nothing is new under the sun. All right. Rise and fall the creek. Let's see. Da, 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 da. All right, well, I will go through that. That is a little bit too lengthy, so we're just gonna stick to the primary source material. All right, when you're ready, let's go. Let's go. So let us bring this together a little bit and zoom in. All right, here we have the state of Georgia. All right, in the United States. This is a charter. This is a charter from King George in 1732. Okay? Let's see if we can zoom it in a little more so you can see. It says George II, by the grace of God, of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, King, Defender of the Faith, and so forth. To all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. Hey, me have to laugh, you know. Me have to laugh. Anyways, whereas we are credibly informed that many of our poor subjects are, through misfortunes and want of employment, reduced to great necessity, insomuch as by their labor they are not able to provide a maintenance for themselves and families, and if they had means to defray their charges of passage and other expenses incident to new settlements, they would be glad to settle in any of our provinces in America, whereby cultivating the lands at present waste and desolate, they might not only gain a comfortable sustenance for themselves and families, but also strengthen our colonies and increase the trade, navigation, and wealth of these our realms. These our realms. And whereas our provinces in North America have been frequently ravaged by Indian enemies, more especially that of South Carolina, which in the late war by the neighboring savages was laid waste with fire and sword, and great numbers of English inhabitants miserably massacred, and our loving subjects who now inhabit them, by reason of their smallness of their numbers, will in case of new war be exposed to late calamities. So at this time, there was no such thing as the United States. Okay? This is when they had colonial rule, right? But when we go down here, so, right? I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something. Yeah. So here they are doing something very interesting in this charter document. If you notice it, it has a lot of run-on sentences, and it is consistent with how we see the acts of parliament in Jamaica, right? Let's start right here. It says, let us start, no one start too far. Diverse persons would be induced to contribute to the uses and purposes aforesaid. Know ye therefore that we have, for the considerations aforesaid, and for the better and more orderly carrying on of the said good purposes of our special grace, certain knowledge and mere motion, willed, ordained, constituted, and appointed, and by these presents, for us, our heirs and successors, do, will, ordain, constitute, declare, and grant that our right trusty and well-beloved John Lord Viscount Percival and our Kingdom of Ireland, our trusty and well-beloved, all these names, right? All these names. Adams Anderson and Thomas Corrigan, gentlemen, and such other persons as shall be elected in the manner herein after mentioned, and their successors to be elected in the manner herein after directed, be and shall be one body politic and corporate. Now, you may not be familiar with these terms. One body politic and corporate. What they are doing here is they are creating not only a corporation, but they are creating literally what you would consider to be a nation state, or they are creating a trust, or they are creating a nation with these small amount of people, because they are being recognized in a political and a corporate capacity. But anyways, we're not going to stop there. This is not class. Indeed, and in name, by the name of the trustees for establishing the colony of Georgia in America. So what did they just do? They have just created what is called a public trust. These people that they just named from these different areas, from Ireland and these other different places, they are now listed as trustees for establishing the colony of Georgia in America. So these are intellectuals. These are people in government or people who have that kind of knowledge to handle the affairs of creating a colony. Right? And them and their successors by the name we do by these presents for us and our heirs and successors really and fully make, ordain, constitute, and declare to be one body politic and corporate, indeed and in name forever. What did I say? Corporate and indeed. A deed. A deed establishes what? Property. And in name forever. Let me ask you a question. Do you know of a state in the United States called Georgia? Formerly the colony of Georgia. All right. And that by the same name they and their successors shall and may have perpetual succession. And that they and their successors by that name shall and may forever hereafter be persons able and capable in the law to purchase, have, take, receive, and enjoy to them and their successors any manors, massages, lands, tenements, rents, advowsons, I never said that word before, advowsons, liberties, privileges, jurisdictions, franchises, and other heredaments whatsoever, lying and being in Great Britain, or any part thereof, of whatever nature, kind, or quality, or value they may be, in fee and in perpetuity, not exceeding the yearly value of £1,000, beyond reprises, also estates for lives, Also estates for life. So these people are controlling everything. Everything in the colony they are controlling. Right? Alright, let us go down further. This is a very long document, you know. But they are very detailed in what exactly they are allowing these people to do. And we do further grant for us, our heirs and successors, that the aid corporation, so they created a set of trustees for a public corporation and body politic, right? And the common council of the said corporation, hereinafter by us appointed, may from time to time and at all times meet about their affairs when and where they please, and transact and carry on the business of the said corporation. So the king created a corporation, assigned it trustees, so it is a trust and a public corporation, and they give these people the power to create a colony, an extension of Great Britain, right? And as you can see, a very long document, right? Now, this was created in 1732, right? 1732, the Charter of Georgia. Where you can find this document, this is at the Yale, you know what? I'm going to post it on Voice of Jamaica. So after we're done with the live, I'm going to post the links on the research menu item on Voice of Jamaica, so you can go over it, right? All right, so this was 1732, right? Here are the trustees. These people who so-called dress up, you know, in a fancy clothes. You know, some of them will look like what you would probably call, you know, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and them kind of people, right? They will look like these people who seemingly are dressing up and acting like they are civilized, right? The Georgia trustees. The Georgia trustees is a recognition as old as Georgia, and is today the highest honor of the state can confer. The highest honor the state can confer is a Georgia trustee. Imagine that. I thought the states gained independence. The declaration, what do you call it? The Declaration of Independence that declared the United States independent, right? How can you now say that the highest honor in the state is a trustee? This is just like saying the highest court in Jamaica is the Privy Council. We are still attached to colonial rule. In conjunction with the governor, let me zoom it in so you can see, because maybe you can't see what I say. Let me zoom it in. So you know, say, I read from this page. Right? The Georgia trustees is a recognition as old as Georgia and is today the highest honor the state can confer. You see it, right? Okay. In conjunction with the governor's office, the Georgia Historical Society re-established the Georgia trustees to recognize Georgians whose accomplishments and community service reflect the highest ideals of the founding body of trustees. The founding body of trustees? Anyways, we're going to come full circle. Stick a pin. See? The original Georgia trustees, a governing body chartered and appointed by His Majesty King George II of England in 1732 to establish a new colony in North America, founded the Georgia colony upon the principle of non sibi sed aliis, not for self but for others. They governed the colony with this vision until their disbandment in 1752, after which Georgia became a royal colony. So them dead here for over what? 20 years. 20 years to be exact. From 32 to 52, right? After which Georgia became a royal colony. So they did their job in 20 years. Re-established in 2008, the governor of Georgia. I never go bother going further. But as you can see, the colonial legacy continued in the state. All right. Here you know. Georgian law and Georgia's law. 1776 English law in Georgia courts. So not only did the colonial rule continue, the same thing we have in Jamaica, this is what is happening in 1776 when they claim that they had independence. This is where I'm at now. I did not know this. I'm going to show you something. Georgia's adoption of the 1776 English law. You can see it, right? Zoom in a little bit. Zoom in a little bit more. We're coming full circle, you know. But you have to pay attention. See it? Georgia's adoption of 1776 English law. If you are claiming independence, you can remember, you know, the United States, the entire United States, signed the Declaration of Independence, 1776, all the representatives of the colonies, at 1776, then declare independence. So how are you adopting English law if you are claiming independence from it? Anyways, let us take a look. When Georgia's government met in the winter of 1784, the harsh realities of independence set in. The Revolutionary War and British occupation during the war left Georgia in a state of ruin. Physical destruction was rampant. Citizens had fled. The economy was in shambles. When the British occupation ended and Georgia's government took control, the state could be summed up in one word: chaos. Again, you know, this is after 1776. So I don't know what them I talk about. Anyways, this chaos extended to Georgia's legal system. In the period immediately following the collapse of British colonial rule, the state lacked a system of laws to effectively deal with the realities of independence. Georgia had won the right to govern itself, but now it actually had to do so. When the state legislature convened in 1784, they faced the same question as every other newly independent state. When there is no state law, what law should apply? The answer came in the form of a reception statute. When a jurisdiction enacts a reception statute, it adopts the law of another jurisdiction as its own. This practice has a long history in the United States, extending to the initial colonization of North America by England. As England colonized the New World, it brought with it English laws. These laws then became the law of the newly discovered territory. As William Blackstone explained, if an uninhabited country be discovered and planted by the English subjects, all the English laws then in being, which are the birthright of every subject, are immediately there in force. So what did they do? According to this document, you had independence, and then they claim in this document that there was no law in place. So the place was in chaos. So now they adopted the colonial laws that they were previously under. Now, to make matters worse, let me see if them put it down at the bottom down here. So let me check and see. All right, they didn't put it in here, so. But to make matters worse, let us look it up. That is not it. Creation of. You know, there is a section of Georgia law. You see, same like how we have section 4 right here. We're talking about existing laws being in force and effect in Jamaica. They did the same thing in the United States. And even worse, our so-called constitutional framework. This is only in 1962, right? But this happened all the way in 1776 for the United States. So we should have learned from that. If we were truly an independent people and we had our people in parliament at the time, we would have learned that the United States had adopted English law, and that also caused chaos for them because they were being ruled under the same system of laws that was colonial. So right now, all of the states, all of the original colonies, they still, their own records show they are still using colonial laws. They have not, the same way like how we say the colonial laws, them are rule Jamaica now. The same thing in the United States. Those acts of parliament and those legislature documents that they enacted, they are still in force and in effect, many of them. Now granted, there are some of them that were abolished, right? But many of them are still in force and effect today, including the court rulings. So, this is something that was predetermined. Basically, them I say, we learn from the Americans when they claimed independence. But yet still, instead of preparing ahead of time and creating our own laws, we have continued to use the British laws. We have continued to use the colonial laws. And thereby, we cannot have any peace because it was not created for peace. It was created for the extraction of wealth. There is no way we can have a colonial system of laws and say that we are free. It's not going to work. So this is why we need a new constitution. Has to be something that the people can represent for themselves and say, yes, this is a constitution that I can stand with, not behind, not next to, with. So here we are on voiceofjamaica.com, and we are going to proceed with constitutional drafting. Right? We're going to talk about the new section. So on voiceofjamaica.com, you click on New Constitution, which is the first post. Right? And it will load. That one here takes so long. All right, let's refresh and see. Da, 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 da. Like we're having a little bit of a technical issue. Oh, you see, patience is a virtue. As soon as me click off, something come up. All right, here we go. Click on New Constitution. You scroll down a little bit. For those of you who want to submit suggestions, you can submit it right here on the website. Let's go to our current draft. And here we have Sobek, thank you. Listen, we have so many cyber attacks. This is not new, right? We always have a lot of attacks, but we have protections in place. Then I have to put on the rubbers. So we have added a couple of new sections, right? We have added our road safety, commercial transport, and private travel regulation. We went over that last time. Right, we have a new article, Article 41, dealing with customs, border control, and import regulation. Right, so we just went through our current system of customs regulations. So now in our constitution, right, we are gonna have to set out rules and regulations for a similar structure, but also very different, right? So let us take a look at what we have. So here we have Article 41, Customs, Border Control, and Import Regulation. There is hereby established the Jamaica Customs and Border Control, and may be cited as the JCBC, right? What is this about? This is a constitution we are drafting for Jamaica, the new Jamaica. Section 1, purpose. The JCBC is established for the purpose of administering and enforcing a customs and border control system intended to protect the people from harmful imports by sea or air, ensure accountability in all shipments, regulate commercial trade without expanding enforcement authority. Right? Border control shall not be used for arbitrary detention, seizure, or revenue extraction beyond this article. Scope of regulation. All incoming and outgoing shipments are subject to inspection and recording. Regulation applies to commercial trade shipments, personal shipments, transported goods by air or sea. Right? 3. Inspection shall be limited to identification of contents, verification of declared value, and detection of prohibited items. Right? So, again, we have to have very clear and definite terms as to what is the purpose of customs in the first place. What are they regulating, right? And what should they be doing? And that is one thing that is missing in current legislations. We have this long, big document, right, with all kind of conflicting sections and conflicting areas that allows for confusion. You know, if you don't have a legal mind, you'll obviously be lost. You're not going to go through 700 and something pages. So when we're crafting laws, we should have things that are very simple so that it is not easy to get around. So basically, if it is not written down, that means that you cannot do it. It's that simple. All right? Customs Authority. The Jamaica Customs and Border Control is established to administer this article with limited power and no power of arrest. Only temporary detention where proven necessary and proportional to this article. The authority shall inspect shipments, classify shipments as commercial or personal, assess lawful tax where applicable, maintain records, and detain violators for investigation by law enforcement. Right? So, it wouldn't necessarily change anything that is going on. No. It's just that now they would have a clear, but remember, we have a big reading problem here. Just pay attention. We soon get to your contention. Once we have a clear directive of the authority, right, we won't have to worry about if we are in the right or if we are doing something wrong. Because we are not going to have this big, long, extensive thing with all kind of legalese and over explanation and run-on sentences. Very simple direction. So if you fall outside of this, you know, so you're in the wrong. Right? The authority shall not create law, impose penalties beyond this article, or act outside of recorded activity. So everything, again, as with any arm of government, must be recorded. Right? Any action that is taken and they don't record it, now you're going to face not only investigation, but you face penalties. Right? We have to have strict penalties so that all public servants know exactly that if they not do them duty and them try act like say them a got a road, penalties are automatic, right? You can't get around it. Classification of shipments. Shipments shall be classified as either commercial trade, personal consumption, governmental, or charity. Classification shall be based on quantity, declared use, and frequency of import. Misclassification shall be subject to review and correction. Right? So, again, we are not trying to punish ourselves for simple mistakes. So, when we have a simple misclassification, it should simply be reviewed and corrected, not punish people for every single little thing. Right? If it is clear it is a misclassification, you just update it. Simple. Taxation of imports. TikTok police, lawful, welcome. Taxation of imports. Only commercial trade shall be taxed. The flat tax rate of 30% shall apply to the original declared value of commercial goods. Personal or consumption-based shipments shall be exempt from all taxes and fees. Any tax imposed outside these limits is void. Warehouse storage. Commercial shipments may be subject to warehouse storage. Storage fees shall not exceed 5% of the commercial tax amount after the allotted grace period. Storage fees shall not apply to personal shipments for up to 15 days, after which a 5% fee shall be assessed. Where commercial or large charitable goods are not collected within 9 days after notice, additional storage charges may apply. Such charges and notice shall be recorded and justified. Notice of availability. The customs authority shall notify the recipient when goods or items are ready for collection. Notice shall include shipment identification, classification, tax due, if any, collection deadline. No penalty shall apply without verified notice. Customs record system. A national customs record system shall be maintained. The system shall allow public access to shipment status, classification, assessed charges. Right? So, we would simply abolish all of these third parties. Unless they are dealing with storage or unless they are dealing with commerce, we would not need a third party to tell us that a shipment is there. We wouldn't need a third party to tell us that these are the assessed charges, etc., etc. It would be a very minimal open system where you can do the checks yourself. We don't need to be creating a job just because we want to create an additional process. It don't make sense. Access shall be provided through shipment number or identifying reference number. Records shall be accurate, timely read-only accessed by the hour and protected from alteration. So each hour, the system should be updated. Right? All changes within the hour should be updated. We don't have any reason not to include that. Vehicle imports limits. Households shall be limited as follows. 1 vehicle per adult resident. Where 3 or more adults reside, a maximum of 3 vehicles. Right? So if you have 10 people in your yard, only 3 vehicles is allowed to be imported. Point blank. Businesses shall be limited to 1 vehicle per executive officer. Imports exceeding these limits shall not be approved. Prohibited imports. Prohibited items shall not be imported under any circumstance. Any person importing prohibited items shall face criminal liability. A person shall not be liable where the import was unintentional and lack of knowledge is proven in court. Right? So, obviously there would have to be a list of prohibited items. Right? So, once you know you cannot import something, we're not business if you buy it. We're not business if you spend money. We don't business as long as it is something that is prohibited. It cannot be imported. Right? And once it comes in, once you import it, regardless, unless again it was unintentional, right? You did not know it was prohibited. Like for example, something inside of something, right? Some component of something. Then that is, possibly something that you may not be penalized for. But any intentional shipments are going to face strict liability, right? Disposition of prohibited items. Prohibited items shall not remain within Jamaica. Such items shall be exported for donation or exported for sale. Items shall not be used, stored, or repurposed within the country. Where sold, all proceeds shall be deposited into the National Education Fund. So if someone imports a prohibited item, it would either be donated internationally or it would be sold internationally, and those proceeds go towards education. Inspection limits. Inspection shall be recorded by body camera video and documentation, limited to shipment contents, conducted without unnecessary delay. Right? How many times you go to a warehouse or you go wherever if you go pick up one barrel or a box or whatever, and you are there for hours, sometimes the whole day, right? Unnecessary delay, right? Arbitrary or excessive inspection is prohibited. Seizure of goods. Goods may be seized only where they are prohibited or commercial tax is lawfully due and payment is refused. Seizure shall be recorded, state the legal basis, and subject to review. Unlawful seizure is void. Right? So everything has to be documented. If them say something to you, them have to document it. Right? Full record system. Right to challenge. Any person may challenge the classification of goods, assess tax, seizure, or penalty. The Customs Authority bears the burden to prove lawful classification, accurate valuation, and proper procedure. Failure to prove renders the action void. Right? Accountability. Customs officers shall identify themselves verbally and wear badges on the chest. Currently, the amount of them when I say I hide them name badge, some of them don't have no name. They don't want to tell you nothing. They don't want to be identified. Listen, if you are in public service and you don't want to be identified, go your yard. Go and go find private place work. You cannot be in public office and hiding your identity. That don't make no form of sense, legally nor logically. If something happens now, nobody knows how to identify you. What them have to do? Draw a sketch? Anyways. Record all actions. So customs officers shall identify themselves, wear badges, and record all actions and act within defined authority. Any officer who misclassifies goods, imposes unlawful fees, or conducts unrecorded actions shall be subject to removal, civil liability, and criminal liability where applicable. Right? Limitation of authority. Customs Authority shall not expand taxation beyond this article, restrict lawful personal import, or act without recorded justification. Any act beyond these limits is void. And the principle here is Customs and Border Control in Jamaica shall ensure protection from harm, limited and defined taxation, transparency of all shipments, protection of personal import rights, strict accountability of authority, and removal of prohibited goods from the nation. So, we would eliminate not only this excessive waiting period, we would not only eliminate all of these excessive taxes to personal shipments that are intended to be consumed. You know, imagine people are shipping back food. Simple necessities such as food, and you have to be paying all of these exorbitant amounts just to clear food. Food, like, sometimes you have to think about these things. Why are we being charged again for food? We already buy it. You already buy it in a foreign country and it reach your country. Now you are paying for it again. It don't make sense. Don't make sense. So, if we are to create a border control and customs, right, we have to limit all of these things to defined activity, right, and make the process more streamlined. We cannot be engaging in all of these different activities, charging, you know, tax here, duty here, fees here, warehousing here, all these different things. It's just a deterrent. That is why we have so many high prices in Jamaica. When customs charge an arm and a leg to clear these goods, do you think those who are going to sell them back in the regular stores, you think they are going to sell not to make a profit? Absolutely not. So if we can eliminate these high fees at the ports, we can bring the prices down of items and goods. We can bring the price all the way down, because it is absolutely no... Listen, I have seen items being sold in Jamaica for 3 times the amount it costs in another country. Sometimes as much as 10 times the amount. And sometimes people will say the people in thief is not the people, Because if I am investing in a business, I am going to be looking to make a profit. So if I have to pay all of this duty and fees when my items come in, I have to charge as much as I can to make a profit. Exactly. Not only what it sells for, but what it buy for, like the buses. Listen, man, we need transparency and we need accountability. We cannot proceed as a nation and just hearing about reports, and we cannot see anything related to how did we get to this place? How did we get here? We don't have any records the public can review. We don't have any external body auditing the records. We don't have any independent verification of anything that government does. No department at all. We just have to take their word for it. And that is not enough. If they are supposed to be working for us, they are supposed to be in service of the people, then how come we don't have any transparency where we can verify and validate what they are actually doing? Where are the records? I don't want to see reports. I don't want to see statistical numbers. Give us the raw data so we can see it. So when we say create a national record system, that is what we mean, right? We need a system that we, the people, can audit if we need to. And we also create an independent regulatory body that can go in and audit for us. Exactly, like the hurricane money. We have not seen any receipts. One single receipt I have seen, which was not even a proper invoice, was one of them for the buses. That was it. I haven't seen anything else, and it was not officially released by the JA Parliament. It was on Facebook circulating. Them not agree, so them work for it, them think them rule away. Well, maybe in the current system, that is how it is set up. Right? But then again, we have not come together and ask these questions. Right? So, this is our table of contents, right? For those who want to know what this is all about. This is a constitutional draft, right? We take suggestions, we take input from those on the live, and for those who visit voiceofjamaica.com and you click on new constitution, you can submit your suggestions here, and those suggestions are placed under the form so that you can see all the suggestions that were made thus far, right? And here you can access a copy of the draft, and you can access a copy of the Declaration of Independence that we're also drafting, right? So the current constitutional draft is right here. It is free. It is accessible to everyone in the public, and you can review it. You can choose a section that you feel is important to you, and you can see if there's anything that you would like to be added, and we will review and add it as long as it is neutral, right? We don't want to create classism in our society. We want to create a neutral system that protects everyone equally, right? The only separated class that we have so far is women's rights, right? The woman has a right to her body and whether or not she wants to bring forth children, right? So that is the only class-based law that has been included thus far. Other than that, on the left side, we have the titles. So whatever the titles are, for example, A1, this would mean Article 1, right? And over here is the page number on the right. So you can find the article and the page number for the different sections that are covered, right? And again, the sections are not voluminous. Like this is this is actually what, probably a third of the Customs Act. It is only 277 pages. And again, the sections, for example, System of Law is only, what is this? 8 pages, right? Only 8 pages for System of Law and Justice. And as you can see, the different sections, they are not very far apart. So it is only a few pages per law, right? And once you start going through, you will start seeing the relevance and why we have decided to go this route. Anyways, before anything starts, we have the words, meanings, and interpretation section, right? So it gives an explanation of what the words included in the document means and what it means as a matter of law in the Constitution, right? So as you go through, for example, one of the terms you might see is apex court or apex tribunal, right? And here it would give you a clear example or a clear definition of what that word means. All right, so that way you are quite familiar. And if you're not familiar, you can always go back and see what the words are, right? Let me go over, for example, court. The word court means a lawful tribunal of 3 or more judges acting in concert on behalf of the people, judging each case brought before it, guided only by the principles and express written rules under this Constitution, right? So here we have a clear directive of what a court is supposed to be. So we don't have any ambiguity as far as what their job is supposed to be, right? And again, we have from A to U. We don't have any Z or Z so far. So we have our preamble. This was also updated recently. We're gonna possibly expand it just a little bit more, but it is currently fruitful enough. We've updated our Declaration of Responsibilities section again. And our protection of rights and freedoms. All right. So all local tribes, peoples, groups, citizens, and organizations are guaranteed under the authority of this Constitution these protections. Right? So we have to list specifically what we are doing, because one of our downfall in our current society is, even though these things are listed, their purpose is vague. And that is what the courts sometimes use to tell you that, well, you know, you have to show that you have asserted a right. We have to determine whether or not your right was actually something that was, you know, of consequence because of a public servant's actions and all these different wiggle room things. So we have to be very clear when we say a right. What protections of these rights do we really have, right? So here we have a right to life and security. Every person has the right to live in safety and dignity. No person may be deprived of life or liberty except through lawful judgment after a fair trial by an impartial tribunal of 3 judges from different parishes or a jury of 9 people from different parishes unrelated to any party. Right? So here we have a clear random kind of court system where you will definitely not have the same judges judging a matter over and over and over again, right? We would have people from society. Look at right now. Right now, even though they say, the Constitution allows the creation of the courts, it is still colonial, because what happened? In order for you to be a judge in today's society, the minimum requirement that is being imposed is that you have to be an attorney. It is the grandfathered in attorneys that become judges. You will not find any judge in Jamaica that is of the people. All the judges in Jamaica are of the Bar Association Club. And that is a problem, because the Constitution did not say that. The constitutional framework, if we even want to call it a constitution, did not state that a judge or a court requires you to be an attorney or an active member of the bar. And what has happened is, because that is the language that is taught in law school, that is the language they use in court. Legalese, legal language, common law, British law, English law, common law, right? So we know, who have not gone to those schools and know that language, what happens to us? We face the blunt of the stick. So, in order for us to have fairness, we have to redefine our courts. We cannot have attorneys telling us what to do and calling themselves judges. Again, the current system is what it is. I'm just stating the facts. But if we're going to have a equal and fair society, everyone should have an opportunity to be a judge. Everyone, as long as you have some qualification in that area that you are being a judge of, right? No problem. But it cannot just be attorneys. That is a clear classism type of disparity. Clear classism. So this is why we have to be very careful when we create laws or create documents that have the force of law. Because if we have only a single group that is able to do certain things and they have immunity, that is a huge problem. Huge problem. We cannot proceed with anyone in society having immunity. Because once that starts, that means that someone is going to be free to act and they will not have the fear of penalty, because penalties will not apply to them. So we have to eliminate all of those things, right? So anyways, we have these protections, the freedom of right to life and security, freedom of thought and belief, right? So any belief or religion you have, as long as you don't interfere with others, you're free to do what you want. Freedom of speech and expression, right? You have the right to speak, write, publish, and share ideas without censorship, subject only to laws protecting the safety and rights of others. So even though somebody may cuss a bad word in the presence of whoever, that is not something to be apprehended for, right? As long as you're not threatening somebody, you should be fine to cuss a clot. It is a part of your language. It's a part of growing up. You are going to hear it. Everyone is going to hear a clot somewhere, right? So we cannot be punishing people for just speaking. Freedom of assembly. People may gather peacefully to discuss matters of public interest and to petition their government, right? And we're going to break this down. Mr. Donar say, one is a pig. Mr. Dunn is something else here, man. All people individually or as a group or organization may exercise the right to freedom of peaceful assembly, right? And this is a fundamental right as well. If we want to gather and discuss something, we should not be harassed. As long as it is peaceful and it is not getting in the way of anyone or trampling on anyone's rights. Leave the people alone, make them gather. Right? Freedom from arbitrary arrests. No person may be detained or arrested without lawful cause supported by evidence sufficient to prove harm, damage, loss of life, or loss of right. Right? So clear requirement for any arrest. Fair trial. Right? Every person accused of a crime has the duty to face the accuser in court, know the accusation, present evidence, question witness, defend themselves personally or with assistance. If judged by an impartial court authorized under this constitution, be judged by an impartial court authorized under this constitution. A fair hearing, a hearing free from conflict of interest, and freedom from prosecution where primary witness perjury is uncovered. Right? Now, this is another topic. This is a good segue into another topic. You know, many times you'll hear people say the police can lie to you, but you can't lie to the police, which is not true. But it is only true if you don't know. You don't know what is going on with the law. Now, let us bring up the Constabulary Force Act. Since I have a new one, right? Let us bring up that one. So we are still at Constabulary Force Act Section 4, right? What is the meaning of person in this constitution? The meaning of person is person. Here we go. A person means a single man or woman, human being or natural person, whether male or female. Person means the singular form of the word people. Right? So, it is strictly related to someone born of woman, one of the people. Right? So, here we have the Constabulary Force Act. Section 4, which talks about the oath that the constable needs to take in order to be a constable. Right? Now, let us go over the oath. Right? Because remember, they said the police can lie, but you cannot lie to the police. So them claim. Right? Section 4 says, no person to be appointed under this act to be an officer or sub-officer or constable shall be capable of holding the said office until he shall take and subscribe the oath here following, that is to say. Right? So all of this just say, in order for you to be a constable, sub-officer or officer, you have to take this oath. Right? I, first name, last name, do swear that I will well and truly serve our sovereign lady the Queen. Let us pause here for a second. You see what we talk about colonial laws? This is one of the so-called laws that were transitioned beyond the Constitution. Right? So instead of abolishing these things, the Parliament at the time drafted the Constitution to bring forward all of these laws. So now we have the problem of our police is there to serve the Queen. That is the current language as of 2024. Okay? So I, first name, last name, do swear that I will well and truly serve our sovereign lady the Queen in the office of, it says, insert the description of the office here. So that means, whatever it is that you are making this oath for example, if you're a constable, constable goes here. If you're a sub-officer, sub-officer go here. If you're an officer, officer goes here, right? So your rank is what you are saying the oath to. So you cannot be all three. It has to be the rank that you are saying the oath for. All right? So in the office of constable, in the office of sub-officer, in the office of officer. Without favor or affection, malice or ill will. Pause. Is lying ill will? Or is lying something that cannot affect you negatively? So if the police tell a lie, it says here, without favor or affection, without malice, without ill will, and that I will see and cause her majesty's peace to be kept and preserved. Right? So if you lie, is that considered ill will to tell a lie? Or is it something that is revered, something that is honorable, something that should be respected? Tell me in the comments. Is lying considered ill will, or is it something respectable? What do we consider ill will? Something respectable? If you not listen more, you don't participate, you know. Bad faith. Exactly. Ill will and bad faith are brother and sister. So, if the police say to you, say, you know, say, we capture you going 70 miles an hour in a 50 or 55 mile zone. Right? And you say, let me see the speed device. And you say, no, I can't show you. Can't show you that. When you go to court, you can see, or you can see the information on the ticket. Right? And when you look at the ticket, not only do you see the 70 mile he's talking about, but the time that is on the ticket does not match the time that he stopped you. Is that being truthful, or is that ill will? So, here is the thing that people don't realize. You see, when a constable take an oath, let me read the recite for now. Let me read the recite. And that I will see and cause her majesty's peace to be kept and preserved, and that I will prevent to the utmost of my power all offences against the same, and that while I shall continue to hold the said office, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof, faithfully, according to law, so help me God. Which oath shall be administered by any of Her Majesty's justices or by an officer, right? Did you know that once a constable or any of these officers are on duty, their oath is active? So a constable always has to tell the truth. A constable always has to act without malice. A constable always have to act without favor. Always. Because an oath comes with the power. Let me say that again. An oath that is taken to start a job, it follows you forever. You never get out of the oath until you are done working. When you take off the uniform and you're no longer a constable or an officer, the oath does not apply. But once you put on that uniform and come a road, this oath follows you all day or whatever time you work. So when you tell a lie and someone challenges your oath, anyways, I am just saying theoretically, if someone is caught in a lie and their oath is challenged, the entire authority crumbles, including the court. The court loses jurisdiction because the court gets their authority from the authority of the constable to issue the ticket or to arrest. And if you ever poke a hole into any kind of testimony or witness statement that is presented, any affidavits that have holes in it, lies, things that cannot be substantiated, that is cause for dismissal, lack of jurisdiction, failure of authority, violation of oath, malicious intent, ill will. All of these things fall under lying, and also perjury. Perjury. When somebody tells lie under oath in a court, now they have two oaths. You have an oath for the proceeding when you are being a witness and you go into the witness box. That is one. And you have the second oath that you took to be a constable. If you break any of those oaths, it comes with dire consequences. Dire consequences. If someone uncovers this, can say, Your Honor, I move to dismiss this matter for violation of the constable's oath. This is clearly ill will. And in addition to that, this is now an impersonation of office. Because once you don't have an oath, you are not in office. Is it easy? Insert the description of the office here. So if you are not acting within this capacity at all times, you lose all protection. All protection of this office goes out the window. So now you can demand sanctions, theoretically. Your Honor, here, this is an offense against the oath and an offense against the Queen's peace. And once we have an offense against the Queen's peace, that is a criminal offense. I hereby demand the court recommend sanctions. Right? Because just like if they catch you a thief, it is the same criminal penalty that has to be applied to someone who is now an impersonator of office. If you are not upholding the oath that you took, you are now pretending to be someone who is upholding the oath. And thereby, you have malfeasance of office. As a matter of fact, you don't even have an office at that time, because you cease to be a constable once you tell the lie. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Okay? So this is why they take the oath in the first place, for accountability. But most of us don't realize how powerful this thing is. Now, a previous visitor on the live stated that they did not take this oath, but yet still they are constable. That is not good. That's all I can say on that matter. Not good. Not good at all. But if I was in a position where the authority is questioned, I would subpoena that oath of office for that constable. 100%.
All the way from
Lawful.
mistake.
Okay.
All the way from
Yeah. So I would subpoena this record, because if this record does not exist, the case cannot exist. A constable's oath is necessary to carry out the office of a constable. If the oath does not exist, the authority does not exist, the case does not exist. Case closed. Okay? This is not optional, this is a requirement. Very powerful thing. Now, let us take a look at one more thing before we convene or call it a night. All right? Let's take a look at let's take a look at the Transport Authority Act. I'm just going to refresh your memory here. All right? This is the Transport Authority Act. Okay? This was passed in 1987. It says this act may be cited as the Transport Authority Act. In this act, authority means the transport authority established under Section 3. Chairman, inspector means it's inspector designated as such pursuant to Section 12. Functions includes powers and duties. Member mean a member of the authority. Public passenger vehicle and road license shall have the same meaning respectively as in the Road Traffic Act. All right. Establishment and functions. There is hereby established a body called the Transport Authority, which shall be a body corporate. Meaning, what? A corporation. And just like we went over earlier, it is common for the Crown to just create corporations out of nothing. Right? So this is how they style it, a body corporate or a public corporation, to which the provisions of Section 28 of the Interpretation Act shall apply. The provisions of the first schedule shall have effect with respect to the constitution of the authority and otherwise in relation thereto. The functions of the authority shall be to regulate and monitor public passenger transport throughout the island and to perform such duties as immediately prior to the 8th day of July 1987 where required to be performed by licensing authorities, public passenger transport board of control constituted under blah 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 blah. Now, it is clearly stated here, the function of the authority shall be to regulate and monitor public passenger transport. Right? Basically, anybody will carry passenger for a fee. So you see, when the Transport Authority agents start going after private cars that have no commercial capacity, this is a violation of their charter. If you don't know this, right, and Transport Authority take away your car, take away your vaccine, take away this, take away that, you are at the mercy of them. Because the first thing they have to do is they have to prove that you were operating as a public passenger transport. Testimony alone cannot suffice evidence in a court of law. Evidence is required, and affidavit alone does not substitute for evidence. They have to provide evidence of you operating as a public passenger transport. Right? The man them a run on pan red plate food, so them forget left. Well, even if that is the case, we have something called due process of law. You still have to be afforded all the protections until they can prove you wrong. Transport Authority acting as police and holding person against their will. Again, that is not defined as a function of the Transport Authority. They say regulate. They never say they are supposed to assault, batter you. They never say they are supposed to apprehend you for the constable. They are not supposed to help the police in their duties. Again, you have something called the doctrine of separation of powers. If a Transport Authority individual is holding on to someone, right, and they are stopping their freedom of movement and they are assaulting them, then that is something that, again, you'd have to get an attorney, or if that's if you don't know what to do. If you know what to do, you head to the Constitutional Court. Head to the Supreme Court. Right? Let's talk about the minister's authority. Power of authority to co-opt. Subject to subsection 2, the authority may, if it thinks fit for the purpose of carrying out its function, co-opt persons who are not members of the authority to participate in any proceedings of the authority, either generally or in relation to any particular matter. Right? That means that them can go out there and they can subcontract with people to get help. Any person co-opted pursuant to subsection 1 shall not be entitled to vote in any proceedings of the authority. Right? Subject to subsection 2, the authority may appoint and employ at such remuneration and on such terms and conditions as it thinks fit. That's why them act like them a got a road, right? To carry out its functions. Financial, when a business about that. Borrowing powers, all of these are financial. Inspectors. The minister may, for the purpose of inspecting and monitoring the operations of all public passenger vehicles, designate as inspectors on such terms and conditions as he thinks fit, public officers or persons employed by the authority who, in his opinion, are, by training and experience, qualified to be so designated. Right? So they need to be trained and have the experience to be a Transport Authority agent. Designation of a person as an inspector under subsection 1 shall be notified in the Gazette. So if someone says they are an inspector of the Transport Authority, they need to have a notice that is in the Gazette, the government Gazette, that states that they are such an individual. You can subpoena this in court. Any public record you can subpoena. And also private records as well, as long as it has to do with your case. An inspector or a constable may at any time stop and inspect any public passenger vehicle to ensure compliance with the terms of the road license and any relevant road traffic enactments. Stop and inspect any vehicle which he reasonably suspect of operating as a public passenger vehicle contrary to the relevant road traffic enactments. Monitor the frequency of public passenger vehicles on any route. Carry out. Now you notice, it says what? Monitor the frequency of public passenger vehicles on any route. It did not say monitor private cars to see if they are running a robotaxi. It says they can stop and inspect any vehicle which he reasonably suspect is operating as a public passenger vehicle contrary to the relevant road traffic acts, right? And the term reasonably suspects has to be in relation to a violation. It cannot just be, oh, you look like you have too much people in another car there. It look like run one robot taxi. That is not enough. You have to have evidence of some sort. Carry out an inspection of conductors and drivers of public passenger vehicles and the licenses held by these conductors and drivers, right? Nothing here talks about anyone private. Carry out such powers and or duties in relation to relevant road traffic enactments as may be prescribed. An inspector or constable shall have the power to seize any vehicle which, is licensed as a stage carriage, express carriage, road taxi, etc., etc. Licensed as a hockey carriage, licensed as a contract carriage, licensed as an express carriage, is being operated or used as a public passenger vehicle without a license issued for such operation or use. So again, they have to prove that if they are going to take someone's car, a private car, they have to prove that it was being operated as a public passenger vehicle. Part B, to take or cause to be taken to the nearest police station or to the nearest convenient place authorized by the police pursuant to Section 3, any vehicle which is seized under paragraph A. So under paragraph A, it still requires evidence, right? How are you going to know it is being operated as a public passenger vehicle? How? You see, some of this is not common sense, you know. But when you bring it under scrutiny, you say, okay, prove to me that this car that you seized, show me what you have that indicates that this individual was operating without a road license. I mean, it has to exist. It can't just be, you know, some minutes see in stop on a lot of people. That is not enough. And it has to be in such a frequency. When is them that set up this thing? It has to be operated in such a frequency that you can prove with evidence. You can take pictures, you know, back and forth, or use a video camera showing the back and forth activity, because one single trip of somebody letting off someone or having certain amount of people in the car is, come on, we have to use scrutiny here, all right? To prosecute any person for any contravention of a relevant road traffic enactment, and to serve on any person any process, summon, or document related to such prosecution or contravention, right? To give the owner, driver, or operator of a public passenger vehicle directions consistent with the road license and as may be necessary in the opinion of the inspector or a constable to ensure orderly, safe, and efficient operation of public passenger transport in an area, right? Blah, blah, blah. Making copies of such books and records and documents. So, anyways, in order for a transport authority to seize a car or to harass you talking about it, look like you're on transport, you see how much time I tell you now? Get a dash cam. It's over a year now, right? We're starting counting towards year 2. Get a dash cam. Very simple, very effective. Your phone is sometimes not enough. By the time you start record, it already gone in too far in the interaction. You don't see how things started. Get a dash cam. If you don't get a dash cam, which is again very reasonable, the quality don't have to be spick and spank. You can get a $30 US or a $50 US dash cam. And once that a record, that is all you need. That is really all you need. Because if you go to court, you say, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce into evidence, counter evidence to this claim. That's all you need to do. You don't need to be in this back and forth foolishness, right? And again, if you catch them in a lie, you go back to the Constabulary Force Act. Section 4, violation of oath of office by lying under oath. Double oath too. So that is penalty of perjury as well. If you don't know how to traverse the law, you're in problems. Problems. Okay? So, you have to be very careful out there. You have to have some knowledge of the law. You can't just be just going about your business and hoping you don't get in trouble, hoping that they don't stop you, hoping that they don't tell a lie, hoping and wishing. You have to gain a little bit of knowledge so that if the time comes where you have to defend yourself, you have at least a little bit of the tools necessary to defend yourself. Right? So we have a few minutes. Any questions? You can jump in the box and we'll bring you up one by one. We're not going to be putting up a panel. So if you have any questions, you can come up, you can ask the questions, and we can proceed. So, like we talked about earlier, constitutional protections are there to protect you before a violation. It is not there for after the fact. It is not there for you to go to court in order to gain remedy. When you go to court, you're literally supposed to just go there and collect your restitution. You're not supposed to be going there arguing and arguing and arguing. You simply go there because your rights were violated and you want to be restored to the state you were in prior to the violation, or to claim the damages that you sustained as a result of the violation, right? And unfortunately, the law does not work in collective. The current law does not work in collective. So if you get violated, you alone can go and claim a violation. Nobody can go for you. Nobody can study for you. Nobody can get an attorney for you. You have to do it for yourself, right? So that is where things stand. So we are, again, almost done with the draft. We just want to make sure we include all the relevant sections, all the relevant points, so that when it is all done and we're ready for stage 2, we don't have to be trying to draft acts and resolutions and amendments. I mean, most likely we will have amendments in the future, but again, we want to make sure that we have something stable that we can rely upon. And, you know, one last thing I want to mention, right? You know, these people that write these historical documents, you see, when you start read them and you start go through certain things, you start realizing a pattern. You know, they have an excuse for everything. They have an excuse for everything. Now, let us look at this, right? And if we look at our current reality, right? One of the reasons we have such a high crime rate is because most of us are defenseless. We can't defend ourselves. If somebody run in with a pew-pew, what you gonna do? You hear some noise out a door. By the time you draw for a machete, I mean, how effective can you be without being armed? Right? And to be armed, now we have all these rules and regulations where the Constitution said no such thing. You have the right to defend your family and your property. So if that is the case, why do we have to go through all of these hoops and caboodle in order to get a firearm to protect our property and our family? So if we really think about it, let's say, because a lot of times, you know, I have constables who come on the page, and when we call out the bad habits and the unlawful behavior of some of these individuals, the first thing they resort to is crime. Constables, you know, constables come on this page and they say, well, go and do this and see what happened. Go and do that and see what happened. And I have to keep reiterating myself, this is a lawful page. All we talk about here is staying within the line of the law. So when you come over here and I talk about, okay, well, get rid of what I police them and see what how criminal do know and this and that and whatever. You see, some of these people, the mental capacity is really lacking, and they really think that if they don't monitor and enforce traffic laws, that it would be chaos in traffic. They think that if the police was somehow not a part of society, that society would be in ruins and chaos, right? And they don't think that any society can maneuver itself immediately without a police force, right? Or without police presence in certain areas. See, someone in the comments say, Leon said, research shows that, brother. What research? We have a few minutes. Give me the name of the research so that we can pull it up. All right, we're going to disregard you for now because over here, so we go with facts. We don't go with conjecture. I'm going to give you a fact here. Let us look at traffic enforcement first of all. It is proven that speeding only happens where someone has control of the car. No one is going to speed when they know they are not in control of the car. Of course, we have some individuals who are irrational, but let us ask ourselves a question. Today, we currently have traffic law enforcement by the police, right? Does that stop people from crashing? Does that stop people from speeding? Does that stop people from causing unaliving because of bad road practices? A typical example of lawlessness is when drivers hold road on ambulances. And here you go proving my point. We currently have regulation and we currently have enforcement. The police is currently on the road. So why do we still have these problems? Why do we still have road problems if the so-called enforcement is working? You see, here is what never happened in our recent past. We have never had a period of time where we say, you know something? Let us take the police off the road. We're not talking about other operations, we're talking about road traffic, just regular road operation. We have never taken the police off the road and see what would happen. Let us see if it is truly chaos if we take the police off of the road from the random stopping and the trying to direct traffic and all. Just take them off of the road. Make us see what happens. Because what? There are days that they are not out there. And do we have chaos? Do we? So if we take them off of the road for a month, no, let's not do a month. Let's just do 2 weeks. Let us see if everything go into chaos. Right? Let us see if the people them say, no, we want the police out here. We need them to see what's going on with the traffic and see who is violating and whatever. That would prove, right, unequivocally, whether or not the police presence is required to random stop people or to so-called regulate traffic and what's going on in traffic. That's number one. Number two, let us talk about speeding. Let's talk about speeding. We have in Europe something called the Autobahn, right? Where you can go as fast as you want. A long stretch of road between two countries. And guess what? There are less accidents on that road than on the regular highway and the regular road that we have congested with traffic. So again, the question is it really about public safety or is it about just controlling or having a presence where cars and traffic are? I have not personally seen the Autobahn. No, I have not. But I have done the research. What is your question about the Autobahns? That is, you see, now you're saying compared to our roads. You see what I'm talking about, people? If we're going to have a discussion, let us have an apples to apples discussion. It doesn't matter the condition of the roads. What, we don't have highways? We cannot compare the autobahn to highways, is that what you're saying? Just because it is not a long stretch, we cannot compare it? Anyways, the point here is, if we actually transition from one system of law to another one, that does not bring immediate chaos. The only place we can say we will have some difficulties is where contracts are concerned, right? Because the first thing is, if we have criminal elements and they get out of line, jungle justice sets in. Jungle justice sets in until the system of law returns, right? So when somebody knows that nobody not carry them gone to jail, nobody not lock them up and hold them here, you just might not make it to the next day. That is a completely different mindset within society. When you have your crop and you know, say what, the police not come lock you up because you chop up somebody animal or you chop up somebody on your property because them a con thief. Completely different ball game. Right? So when we talk about the transitioning, right, the highways, they are not 80 zone. When we talk about transitioning from one legal system to the next, we have to realize that no, it is not smooth, but it is easier to build from the ground up than to inherit a legal system that you are taking yourself out of. Because if you adopt from a previous system or from some other system, the remnants of that system will start to affect your society, not necessarily in a positive way. Right? So, let's see. Going back to the comments here. Highways, there are not 80. Options, lawful, good evening. They have an area where the bends are a bit dangerous. They have lighted signs that tell you cut the speed. No police out there giving unlawful tickets. Yeah, like I said, you see, because our current system of government doesn't allow direct participation, they are not going to listen to anything we say. They are not going to listen to any individualized suggestions to make society better or to even try something different. What they're going to do is what? They're going to enact a law. They're going to pass an act of parliament and say it is law. And then they're going to proceed down that route. Unless people start suing them or the court strikes it down, we are stuck. We are stuck with that for a good period of time. And then what? Then we start having other problems where the laws start becoming oppressive, and unless we start challenging them, again, going through the same court system, that so now it becomes a circular issue. The government is causing a grievance, and you have to now petition the government again in order to get a remedy. Right? And you literally have to know what you're doing. You can't just walk into court and just prosecute a case. No, they make up these rules of court that you have to follow. You can't just bring your petition and say, these are my grievances, these are my evidences, and, let us subpoena the party to court, let us deliberate. No, you have to go through this year-long process, year-long multi-stage process to fix a grievance. That is absolutely not effective. Pay to use a toll. How is it that you pay to use a toll and police on it to ticket people for something you pay? Well, it's a them basically say yes, you can pay, but you can't control. Right? And remember, members of parliament are exempt from anything they say or do, so that means they are exempt from the laws. Unfortunately. Right? So, anyways, peeps, that is it for tonight. We're going to continue on Wednesday. We have a few more sections to go. And then, hopefully, by the end of this month, we can finish up the drafting, we can finish up polishing the document, and we can get ready for stage 2 coming up. All right, so big up on yourself. We will continue on Wednesday. I will update the page so you can see the live, and if you want, or you can register for the live so that you can be notified when I go live on Wednesday. All right, big up on yourself. Lawful, always.